Alex had always dreamed of exploring the unknown. As a young boy, he would stare at the night sky for hours, imagining what life might be like on other planets. Now, at 29, he had finally achieved his dream. He was part of the Aurora expedition, a team of scientists and explorers sent to investigate uncharted planets in a distant star system. Their mission was clear: study the planets, document life forms, and return safely. The planet they had landed on was called Urindor, an enigmatic world covered in dense forests and glowing rivers. The sky was a shade of deep violet, and strange plants shimmered in the twilight. Alex had been assigned to survey the southern forest region. Equipped with a scanner, communicator, and basic survival kit, he set off alone, his curiosity pushing him forward. At first, everything seemed peaceful. Birds with translucent wings flitted through the trees, and small, luminescent creatures darted between the bushes. Alex jotted notes into his tablet, marveling at the diversity of life around him. But as he moved deeper into the forest, the atmosphere began to change. The trees grew taller and thicker, blocking most of the fading sunlight. The air became dense, almost heavy, and an eerie silence replaced the usual forest sounds. Alex's heart began to race. He had been here for hours, and yet his scanner showed no other human presence. It was as if he had stepped into a hidden world untouched by civilization. He tried to calm himself, reminding himself that fear was natural in unknown environments. But then he saw movement, a shadow enormous and fluid passing between the trees. He froze, his mind raced. "Is it an animal, a predator?" he whispered to himself. Slowly, Alex reached for his communicator, intending to call the base, but the signal was gone. A surge of panic rose in his chest. He was alone, deep in an alien forest, and something massive was moving toward him. The ground trembled slightly with each step. Alex's eyes widened as two enormous figures emerged from the shadows. Standing over 20 feet tall, they were humanoid, yet their features were unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Their skin shimmered with a faint iridescence, and their eyes glowed softly, reflecting the twilight. Each movement was deliberate, careful, as though they were studying him as much as he was studying them. Alex's first thought was terrifying. "They're going to eat me." The size difference alone made escape seem impossible. He tried to take a step back, but a tree root caught his foot, sending him sprawling onto the forest floor. The giants paused, tilting their heads as they watched him struggle. Alex's panic grew, but there was something strange about their expressions. They were not snarling or rushing forward, they were curious. He tried to speak, but his voice sounded small and weak against the vastness of their presence. Hello," he stammered. One of them tilted her head closer, her eyes narrowing in examination. Alex could see the intricate patterns on her skin, almost like glowing tattoos that shifted as she moved. His fear battled with awe. She was beautiful in a way that was completely alien yet strangely mesmerizing. For several tense moments, neither side moved. Alex realized that sudden movements might provoke them, so he remained still, his breathing shallow. Slowly, he raised his hands to show he was unarmed. One of the giants, the one with the shimmering silver markings, crouched slightly, bringing her face closer to his. Alex noticed her eyes reflected intelligence and, strangely, care. Then the other giant with greenish-blue patterns across her arms stepped forward and gently tapped Alex on the shoulder. The touch was light, careful, not threatening at all. Alex flinched initially, but the gentle pressure reassured him. These beings were massive, yes, but they were not hostile, at least not yet. Trying to communicate, Alex pointed to himself and said, "I am Alex, human, explorer." He gestured at his scanner and then at the forest, hoping they would understand that he was curious, not a threat. To his amazement, the silver-marked giant extended a long, delicate finger and traced a circle in the air. Then she touched her chest, pointing to him again. Alex realized she was introducing herself in her own way. Over the next several minutes, the interaction grew more methodical. Alex used gestures, pointing to his tablet, mimicking walking, and even drawing simple shapes in the dirt. Slowly, he began to understand small gestures from the giants. They seemed interested in him, studying his movements and reacting to his attempts at communication. Alex's fear began to subside slightly, replaced by cautious curiosity. But just as he started to feel a tiny spark of hope, the ground shook violently. A low growl echoed through the forest, coming from a direction opposite the giants. Alex's heart raced again. Whatever that was, it was not human, and it was approaching fast. The giants looked toward the sound and exchanged a series of gestures that Alex could not understand. One of them raised her hand as if signaling him to stay put. Alex realized he was caught in the middle. On one side were these enormous, intelligent beings who were studying him, and on the other, some unknown predator that was clearly dangerous. His mind worked furiously, trying to think of a plan. He considered running, but even a sprint would not save him from a creature of that size. Instead, he stayed still, hoping that the giants would act. Slowly, the silver-marked giant crouched even lower, making herself slightly smaller in appearance, and gestured for Alex to follow her. Trembling, Alex obeyed, crawling carefully behind her massive legs. The other giant flanked them, creating a protective barrier between Alex and whatever lurked in the shadows. They moved deeper into the forest, away from the growling sound. Alex noticed that despite their size, the giants were incredibly careful. They avoided breaking branches or stepping on plants unnecessarily. It was clear they respected their environment, and now he began to see that they were not only intelligent but also highly disciplined. After what felt like hours, they arrived at a clearing. In the center stood a huge tree, its trunk wider than a small house and its leaves glowing softly in the dim light. The giants gestured for Alex to sit beneath the tree, and then they did something surprising. They began to manipulate the surrounding plants. Vines and branches moved gently, forming a sort of shelter around them. Alex realized that these beings could control or communicate with the flora in ways he couldn't comprehend. As night fell, Alex sat in awe beneath the glowing canopy. The giants stood watch, occasionally exchanging glances and movements that seemed like conversation. For the first time since he had entered the forest, Alex felt something other than fear. These beings, terrifying at first glance, were capable of thought, care, and maybe even friendship. Still, uncertainty gnawed at him. He did not know if they truly accepted him or if this was only temporary. But as he watched the stars above the violet sky, he allowed himself a small, cautious hope. Perhaps he had not stumbled into a trap, but into an extraordinary opportunity. As Alex drifted into a light sleep, he couldn't help but wonder, what other secrets did this planet hold, and what role would he play in the strange, towering world of the giants? Morning came slowly to the violet-tinged forest of Urindor. Soft light filtered through the glowing canopy, casting gentle patterns on the forest floor. Alex awoke to find the two giants standing nearby, watching him carefully. Despite their massive size, their presence felt protective rather than threatening. The silver-marked giant, whom Alex had silently begun calling Leora, bent down slightly and made a circular gesture with her hands. Alex understood immediately. She was signaling him to follow. Though nervous, he stood and carefully moved alongside Leora, the greenish-blue marked giant, Ceres, walking on the other side, creating a living barrier. Alex's heart raced at the thought of exploring with beings so powerful. The fear that had gripped him the night before had not completely faded, but curiosity was stronger now. As they moved deeper into the forest, Alex noticed small details he had missed the previous day. Strange plants shifted slightly as the giants passed, almost as if greeting them. Birds with translucent wings chirped in patterns that seemed coordinated with the giant's steps. He realized that Leora and Ceres had a connection with their environment far beyond what humans could imagine. Suddenly, a loud rustle echoed from above. Alex froze. He looked up and saw several flying predators circling high in the trees. These creatures had long wings, sharp beaks, and glowing eyes. Though they had not yet noticed him, Alex understood instantly that he would be helpless if they attacked. He glanced at the giants. Without warning, Leora raised her massive arm and made a sweeping motion. Instantly, vines from the nearby trees twisted together, forming a barrier between them and the predators. Ceres stomped lightly, sending a small shockwave through the ground that dissuaded the creatures from descending. Alex was astounded. Not only were the giants intelligent, but they could control aspects of their environment to protect themselves and him. You can do that?" Alex whispered, more to himself than to them. Leora tilted her head, blinking slowly, as if acknowledging his words. Alex smiled nervously. Somehow, he had begun to feel safer with them. After a few hours of walking, they reached a vast clearing. In the center stood a village of enormous structures carved from living trees. The homes were hollowed trunks and intertwined branches, glowing softly from bioluminescent plants. Giants of different sizes moved about, tending to small gardens, fishing in streams, or conversing in gestures and soft sounds. It was unlike anything Alex had ever imagined, a civilization alive, harmonious with nature, and completely alien. Alex's jaw dropped. You live here?" he asked, his voice trembling with awe. Saris nodded slowly, pointing to the village and then to Alex, indicating he could stay. Hesitant but curious, Alex followed. The villagers observed him carefully, their expressions unreadable but not hostile. Alex realized that acceptance here was cautious. He had to prove himself, not with strength, but with usefulness and trust. As they reached a large tree hollow that seemed like the center of the village, Leora gestured for Alex to sit. Then she brought over a fruit-like object that glowed faintly. Alex took it cautiously, biting into it. The taste was sweet and refreshing, unlike anything he had ever eaten. Leora smiled, a small, delicate movement, and Alex felt a tiny surge of warmth in his chest. For the rest of the morning, Alex tried to communicate with the giants using gestures, drawings, and simple words. Slowly, they began to understand basic concepts: his name, his role as a human explorer, and his curiosity about their world. Alex realized that he was learning from them just as much as they were observing him. But as he became more comfortable, a shadow fell over the village. From the edge of the clearing, a group of strange creatures emerged. They were tall, armored, and armed with strange tools that emitted a faint hum. Their leader, a towering figure with jagged silver armor, spoke in harsh, guttural tones, pointing at the giants and then at Alex. Alex couldn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. This village, this forest, belongs to us. Panic gripped him. He glanced at Leora and Saris, but neither seemed afraid. Instead, they moved closer to Alex, positioning themselves between him and the invaders. Alex's mind raced. He was small, weak, and unarmed. There was no way he could fight these creatures alone. Yet the giants did not retreat. Instead, they began communicating rapidly with gestures, sounds, and movements Alex couldn't fully understand. Suddenly, Leora raised her arms, causing vines to surge from the ground, forming walls and barriers. Saris stomped, creating tremors that made the ground uneven, slowing the intruders. Alex realized that the giants were defending their home, and now him too. I have to help," Alex muttered. He looked around and noticed several devices he had carried from his ship, small sensors, scanners, and energy beacons. Quickly, he began to position them around the clearing, using his knowledge of technology to complement the giants' natural powers. He activated a few sensors that emitted light and sound patterns, confusing the intruders. The intruders hesitated, glancing around in confusion. Alex saw a small opportunity. He signaled to the giants, pointing toward the enemy's left flank, and then mimicked a pouncing motion. Leora and Saris understood immediately. With synchronized precision, the giants moved in tandem with Alex's strategy. Leora created sweeping barriers of vines, while Saris used her strength to knock obstacles into the path of the invaders. Alex darted between cover points, placing sensors and using light signals to guide the giants' movements. The intruders grew frustrated and began retreating, unable to overcome the combination of Alex's tactics and the giants' raw power. Finally, after a tense standoff, they withdrew into the forest, leaving the village unharmed. Alex collapsed against a tree, panting. Leora knelt beside him, touching his shoulder in a gesture of reassurance. Saris extended a hand and gently nudged him, as if to say, "You are one of us now." Alex smiled weakly, exhausted but exhilarated. Over the next few days, Alex continued to explore the village and learn about the giants' culture. He discovered that they were guardians of the forest, protecting it from intruders and maintaining balance with the ecosystem. Despite their size, they valued intelligence, strategy, and cooperation over brute force. Alex felt proud that his human ingenuity had contributed to the defense of the village. He also began to understand the subtle ways the giants communicated. A flick of a finger, a tilt of the head, or the sway of a hand could convey complex emotions and instructions. Alex realized that while humans relied on technology and language, the giants relied on intuition, gestures, and connection with their environment. Together, they could accomplish incredible things. One evening, as the sun dipped below the violet horizon, Alex sat with Leora and Saris beneath the glowing tree that had first sheltered him. The air was calm, filled with soft hums and distant bird songs. Alex reflected on the past days, the fear, the awe, the danger, and the unexpected trust that had formed between him and the giants. He realized something important. Survival on Urindor wasn't about strength alone. It was about adaptability, cooperation, and courage. Humanity's greatest strength, he thought, was the ability to understand, innovate, and find solutions even in impossible situations. And now, in the company of these towering beings, Alex felt that humans and giants together could achieve the extraordinary. As he drifted into sleep beneath the soft glow of the bioluminescent leaves, Alex knew that his adventure had only just begun. The forest of Urindor was full of mysteries, and he had allies far stronger and wiser than he could have ever imagined. Whatever challenges awaited, he was no longer alone, and he had already discovered that even a small human could make a monumental difference in a world of giants. The forest of Urindor had grown calm in the days following the intruder's retreat. Alex moved through the village alongside Leora and Ceres with a sense of purpose. He had learned to read their gestures, anticipate their movements, and contribute ideas that improved their daily routines. He had begun to feel more like a member of their community than an outsider. Yet, a quiet tension hung in the air, as though the forest itself knew that danger had not fully passed. One morning, as Alex helped Ceres check the edges of the village for fallen plants and weakened structures, a distant rumble reached their ears. The ground shook gently at first, then more violently. Birds and small animals scattered in every direction. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that this was no ordinary tremor. "We must see," he murmured to Ceres, pointing toward the sound. The giant nodded, and together they moved through the forest. Leora soon joined them, and the three reached the crest of a hill overlooking a valley. Below, Alex could see a massive army approaching, thousands of strange creatures, much larger and more numerous than the last invaders. They marched in strict formations, carrying strange energy weapons that glowed with a deep red light. Alex's heart pounded. This is an invasion," he said quietly, realizing that the village and the forest were now in grave danger. Leora and Ceres exchanged a series of rapid gestures, their communication precise and urgent. Alex struggled to keep up, but he understood enough. The giants were preparing to defend their home, and he would play a crucial role. Over the next few hours, the village transformed. Vines and trees shifted, creating barriers and defensive positions. Bridges of interwoven branches formed narrow choke points, guiding the invaders into predictable paths. Leora and Ceres positioned themselves strategically, while Alex used his technology to enhance their defenses. He set up sensors that emitted blinding light patterns to confuse the enemy, and small drones that projected holographic images of additional giants, creating the illusion of a much larger force. As the invaders entered the valley, they were met with immediate resistance. Vines sprang up, sweeping them off their feet, and the ground trembled with every step of the giants. Alex coordinated their movements, using his understanding of patterns and tactics to guide the giants where the enemy was weakest. Despite their fearsome size and power, the giants relied on strategy over brute force, and Alex's input made a crucial difference. Hours passed in a tense standoff. The invaders adapted quickly, using ranged energy weapons to try and cut through the barriers. Alex's mind raced. He realized that a direct confrontation would be dangerous. They needed a strategy that would turn the tide without unnecessary risk. He remembered an observation from the last skirmish. The invaders relied heavily on coordination and visual cues. If they could disrupt that coordination, they could gain an advantage. Quickly, he activated a series of light and sound devices, creating chaos in the invaders' ranks. The holographic giants moved unpredictably, and the real giants timed their attacks perfectly with Alex's signals. The effect was immediate. Confused and disoriented, the invaders faltered. Leora and Ceres used the opportunity to push them back further, herding them into a narrow canyon where their numbers became less useful. Alex's quick thinking had turned the tide of the battle, but the fight was not over. A massive, armored leader emerged at the front of the invaders' army. Towering even over the giants, with energy weapons fused into his armor, he radiated authority and strength. Alex's breath caught. This one would be far more difficult to outmaneuver. "Stay close," Leora said through gestures, her eyes locking on the leader. Ceres positioned herself to flank him while Alex scanned the environment for potential advantages. He noticed the canyon walls tall, rocky, and uneven. A plan began to form in his mind. "Here's our chance," he whispered. He guided the giants to bait the leader into the canyon. Once inside, Alex used his technology to trigger small landslides, carefully dislodging rocks to block exits and limit movement. The leader roared in frustration, trapped but still dangerous. Leora and Saris worked together, using coordinated strikes to wear him down while avoiding his energy weapons. Alex provided real-time guidance, pointing out weak points and timing their movements. Despite his small size, his ingenuity made a significant impact. Finally, after a tense and exhausting battle, the invaders began to retreat. The leader, realizing the situation was hopeless, signaled the remaining forces to withdraw. The forest was quiet once more, save for the heavy breathing of the giants and the distant rustle of recovering wildlife. Alex sank to the ground, exhausted but exhilarated. Leora knelt beside him, placing a massive hand gently on his shoulder. Saris touched his back in a similar gesture. For the first time, Alex felt a profound sense of belonging. He had faced overwhelming odds and survived, not alone, but as part of a team that combined the best of human and giant abilities. In the following days, the village celebrated their survival. The giants repaired their homes and restored the forest with Alex's help, marveling at the tools and strategies he had introduced. Alex, in turn, marveled at their strength, wisdom, and harmony with nature. He realized that the bond they had formed went beyond mere survival. It was a partnership. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of violet and gold, Alex stood with Leora and Saris at the edge of the village. They watched the forest stretch out below them, calm and undisturbed once more. Alex reflected on the journey. From fear and uncertainty to trust and cooperation, he had learned that courage and intelligence were as powerful as strength. "You saved us," Leora gestured, tilting her head. "And you saved me," Alex replied, using gestures as well. He smiled, knowing the message was clear. Saris extended her hand, gently nudging him in a playful manner. Alex laughed softly. Despite their size, the giants had personalities, humor, and hearts as big as the world around them. Over the next weeks, Alex continued to work with the giants, helping them improve their village defenses, mapping the surrounding forests and documenting the flora and fauna. He learned their customs, their language of gestures, and even their methods of controlling the environment. In return, he shared human innovations, simple machines, energy devices, and tactical strategies that enhanced their way of life. Through these exchanges, Alex realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength was not just courage, but creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to cooperate with other species. The giants had raw power, intuition, and knowledge of their world, but Alex's ingenuity allowed them to achieve far more together than they ever could apart. Months passed, and Alex grew stronger, wiser, and more confident. He no longer saw himself as a fragile human trapped in a world of giants. Instead, he saw himself as a partner, a bridge between worlds, and a testament to what humans could accomplish when they combined brains with courage. One night, as he sat beneath the glowing tree with Leora and Saris, Alex looked up at the stars. He thought of the countless planets yet to explore, the mysteries waiting in the universe, and the adventures still ahead. But for now, he felt a deep sense of contentment. He had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, and emerged stronger, wiser, and not just alive, but a part of something extraordinary. Leora and Saris leaned close, their enormous heads nearly touching as they exchanged subtle gestures. Alex watched, understanding that their conversation, though silent to him, was filled with trust, respect, and even affection. He smiled and joined in, adding his own gestures to the exchange. For the first time, he felt truly at home in a world that had once seemed terrifying and impossible. And in that moment, Alex knew that humanity's story was far from over. The universe was vast, full of wonders and dangers, but with courage, intelligence, and collaboration, even the smallest human could change the course of history. The forest of Urindor was quiet, glowing softly under the twin moons, and Alex, Leora, and Saris stood together, ready for whatever new adventures awaited them. Proof that humanity, no matter how small, could stand strong among giants.